Let me introduce now my wife, Shirley Cloyes, DioGuardi. She's been the Balkan Affairs Advisor to the Albanian American Civic League and Foundation. She is a former book publisher, a writer, an independent scholar, and a human rights activist specializing in the Balkan conflict. And today she is she's a valuable consultant to Chairman Royce and others in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you, Shirley, for all the good work you do, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me? It's a pleasure to be here. I also want to thank Derek Kaufman of the Jewish Federation of Berkshire's, Rabbi David Weiner of Knesset Israel, and Ron and Karen Ratner for making today's important event possible.
She's been the Balkan Affairs Advisor to the Albanian American Civic League and Foundation. She is a former book publisher, a writer, an independent scholar, and a human rights activist specializing in the Balkan conflict. And today she is she's a valuable consultant to Chairman Royce and others in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you, Shirley, for all the good work you do, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me? It's a pleasure to be here. I also want to thank Derek Kaufman of the Jewish Federation of Berkshire's, Rabbi David Weiner of Knesset Israel, and Ron and Karen Ratner for making today's important event possible. You've just listened to Felicita Iacovell on screen, and I'm sure you have a sense of her passion about the Albanian rescue of Jews during the Holocaust, and she has an equal passion about Israel. But what you would not know is the way in which her father and mother raised her and her sister in communist Albania in a way that put their lives at risk. At school, every day, they were fed with communist propaganda, but at night, her father, who said that he refused to raise two daughters as slaves, educated them secretly at home in the Jewish tradition, in several languages, and in Western history, literature, and culture. If caught, the entire family would have been executed. And without a doubt, this background led Felicita at the age of 33 to make a trip to Greece when the country's last dictator felt pressured to loosen the travel restrictions. So she left on the pretext of visiting family in Greece, but she went straight to the Israeli embassy in Athens. The ambassador was amazed to learn about indigenous Jews in Albania, and he helped Felicita fly directly to Jerusalem by not stamping her passport, where she presented the list of all known Jews in Albania to Yad Vashem. This laid the groundwork for the exodus of 300 Jews from Albania to Israel in 1991. And she and her father ultimately founded the Israeli-Albanian Friendship Association in Tel Aviv in 1992, a few months before his untimely death. This is the second of three historical developments without which we would not all be here today. The first you've already heard from my husband, the discovery of the Albanian archives hidden for 45 years that were handed to him and the late Congressman Lantos and then authenticated by Yad Vashem. The second development leading to the revelation is the role played by Felicita Iacovell. And the third development is Joseph Iacovell's handing over to Joe DioGuardi his manuscript entitled Jews of Albania, and in turn to Jewish-American philanthropist Harvey Sonner, who would turn Joseph's treatise after his death into a paperback book entitled Rescue in Albania, the one that Joe mentioned is available here today. He gave the distribution rights to the Albanian American Foundation. He financed the travel of 16 Albanian rescuers to Israel in 1993 to receive their recognition from Yad Vashem. And as of 2017, 70 have been recognized. There's definitely not enough time to review the outcome of the historical convergence of these three events and the work of the Albanian American Foundation in drawing international attention to the Albanian rescue, but I want to highlight a few key moments. In April 1994, after a private tour of the newly established U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., with the Kosovo government in exile, Joe and I were shocked to discover the Albanian rescue was completely missing. And so we lobbied for its inclusion, and in February 1995, our foundation would celebrate the addition of Albania to the Righteous Among Nations section in the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and 3 Jewish congressmen, Ben Gilman, Tom Lantos, and Gerald Nadler, helped to make this a reality, and they spoke at our foundation-sponsored ceremony commemorating the installation. Then after the war in Bosnia ended in 1995, Serbian dictator Slobodan Milosevic turned his attention to Kosovo. With the Kosovar Albanian population at risk of extermination, our Albanian American Civic League and Foundation distributed rescue in Albania, beginning with Jewish leaders and communities who understood before anyone else what was unfolding in the heart of Europe. The unique role that Albanians played in saving European Jewry now began to reach a much wider audience. Our foundation's efforts to expand awareness of the Albanian rescue would then take many forms after that, from congressional resolutions to a 1,000-person event at the Sheraton Hotel in 2005 on the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi death camps, to a trip to Yad Vashem in 2007 for the public recognition of the Albanian role, to a 2012 recognition of the 100th anniversary of the independence of Albania in the U.S. Capitol, and a 2013 event at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in Manhattan, bringing together Jewish leaders, the descendants of Albanian rescuers, members of Congress, and experts on the Holocaust and genocide prevention to reflect on the Albanian rescue. The latter was the direct result of Ron and Karen Retner's attending our foundation event in the U.S. Capitol in 2012 and insisting that the Albanian rescue had to be shared more widely, and it was their vision that has brought us here today. Yes, they deserve another recognition. Thank you. The unique role that Albanians played in saving every Jew who either lived in Albania or sought refuge there during the Holocaust, and we're talking, by the way, about Albanians in every walk of life, from the farmer to the political elite. And as you will hear from Leka Reznicki later, the unique role that Albanians in Kosovo played is all still in the process of being uncovered. To understand the Albanian rescue of European Jewry, it's necessary to understand the long history of Albanian religious tolerance and resistance to oppression that made the rescue possible, that both Ron and Joe have talked about today. There's not enough time, of course, to review this history, but I want to give you a few important components. First, Albanians consist of secular Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholics, and Jews who have lived side by side in harmony for centuries. You will discover, as we did, Albanians are Albanians first. They're people of faith second. The oldest inhabitants of Southeast Europe, Albanians have survived centuries of invasion, occupation, expulsion, and even genocide. Albanians are the descendants of the Illyrians, the core pre-Hellenic population that extended as far as Greece and Italy. During the 6 centuries that Romans ruled Illyria, the Illyrians resisted assimilation and retained their legal norms, their culture, their language. All Albanians were either Roman, Catholic, or Orthodox Christians, except for a small number of Jews, when the Ottoman Turks invaded the Balkan Peninsula in the second half of the 15th century. When the Ottoman Turks invaded Albanian lands, they immediately set out to force conversion to Islam and acceptance of Islamic law, but they largely failed. Until today, Albanians embrace a very secular form of Islam, and intermarriage between Christians and Muslims is commonplace. No sooner did Albanians emerge from 435 years of Turkish domination when the Ottoman Empire finally collapsed in 1912. They then found themselves facing, or battling, I should say, Slavic racism, beginning with the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, in which 500,000 Albanians were killed or died of hunger and disease, followed by racism, forced assimilation, expulsion, occupation, and genocide at the hands of hostile Slavic regimes. Only because of the intervention of then U.S. President Woodrow Wilson was the state of Albania created after World War I. And it was against the plans of Russia and most of Western Europe, but it had redrawn borders that included only half of the Albanian people who had emerged from the defunct Ottoman Empire. As a result, today, 3.5 million Albanians live in Albania, and another 3.5 million live side by side bordering Albania, as Joe said before, in Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, southern Serbia, and northern Greece. In 1939, Mussolini's Italian fascist forces invaded and occupied Albania. The German Nazis followed in 1943. The Nazis expected Albania to cooperate with Hitler's final solution, but Albanians refused. There were approximately 300 Jews living in Albania before the war. By the end of World War II, there were approximately 3,000 Jews living in Albania. The fact that Albanians had been isolated from centuries of institutionalized anti-Semitism in Western Europe was a factor in this remarkable record. However, the principal reason for Albanians saving Jews was their history of religious tolerance and religious and interethnic tolerance based on the Kanun, which is a set of customary laws that has regulated Albanian conduct since their Illyrian ancestors arrived in the Balkan Peninsula thousands of years ago, with its underlying code of Besa, emphasizing compassion and tolerance. The Kanun was passed down orally and enabled Albanians to resist and to survive centuries of persecution, from the Romans to the Ottoman Turks, from the Nazis to the communists, and under Slavic domination for almost a century. Besa links personal honor to respect for and equality with others. It also involves uncompromising protection of a guest, even to the point of forfeiting one's own life. That's why the modern concept we know in the West of foreigners doesn't exist in the Kanun, only the concept of the guest. And so, when the Nazis were bent on genocide, it was natural for Albanians to treat Jews as guests who had to be defended, fed, hidden in private homes, and transported to safety whenever danger threatened. It was Besa that underlay the Albanian rescue